Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Royal Blue Podcast. I'm Phil Kirkbride, and today joined by Dave Prentice, Adam Jones, and Sam Carroll as we chew the fat over all the major talking points at Goodison Park. And there is one place to start. Breaking news this afternoon: Everton have confirmed the worst kept secret in their football calendar. Hummel will be the new kit supplier ahead of next season. A 3-year deal and a club record deal with it too, signed, sealed, and announced today. So before we get on to talk of 95 and Project Restart, chaps, initial reaction, we haven't seen any kits yet. We don't know when yet. The club are going to make an update on that in a couple of weeks. But on the outside, on the surface, pleased with Hummel?
I've got to say, yeah, I'm quite a big fan. As you quite alluded to there, it's not exactly the best kept secret in football that Everton were going to announce this sort of thing. So we've maybe had a little bit of time to plan ahead and think about it. But looking back at some of the kits that Hummel have had in the past, I'm quite enthused by this. I'm intrigued to see what they're going to come up with. It seems like it's going to be a unique sort of design anyway, and that seems to be something that resonates with Evertonians. We don't want these like copy and pasted kits from other clubs. We want something that's unique to the Everton brand, and it looks like Hummel will be able to provide that. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they come up with.
And Preno, for a man of your vintage, shall we say, you will remember the great kits that Hummel provided for Real Madrid and the Danish national team. Of course, this isn't just a Middlesbrough or in most recent Premier League terms, Villa from 2005 or whenever it was.
Unfortunately, I'm just about old enough to remember Hummel being the makers of the boots that Alan Ball sported famously way back in 1970. And back then, they were like revolutionary white boots. And I don't think Bawley was all that delighted with them. He ended up actually painting them black and going out onto a pitch wearing them. And it rained and he got into trouble with Hummel as a result and didn't get paid the money he was supposed to have got paid. Obviously, since then, they've developed magnificently. First thing you do when you hear about a deal like this, there's two ways of looking at it. There's the financial aspect, which is tremendous. I mean, it's effectively twice what they were getting from Umbro. So in commercial terms, it's an absolute no-brainer. And I'm also quite taken by the line in your piece, Phil, about how Everton actually inserted a clause into the original contract with Umbro. It was a long-term contract, but if somebody else comes in the space of 12 months and offers us more money, we can extricate ourselves from that contract. That just sort of very savvy commercial thinking as well, which I thought was a tick in the right box. And the next thing you do as a fan is go and check out Hummel kits. and they look decent. I mean, the Rangers kit that they did is very smart. The Coventry one is very, very well received. So yeah, you want a nice smart kit that's not the same as everybody else. And that's what Lecoq Sportif so famously did back in 1984, and why it was like so well received by Evertonians, because it was a bit different to what other clubs had. And as a result, it resonated with the hipsters out there as well as the average football fan. So hopefully Hummel will do the same.
Sam, high hopes for Hummel?
Yeah,
say that so. When you've had a drink.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I always think the thing about kits, isn't it? You look back on the kits everyone always talks about, ultimately kits that you do well in and that you win trophies in. I think that's why the 80s kits are so iconic. I don't think anyone's going to be going, oh, I love that kit from Koeman's last season. It was an honourable kit, but also because we were so bad, you would just never kind of think about it. I think some of my favourite kits growing up were probably the years where we did do quite well, maybe the one where we finished fourth and stuff like that. So you've got to hope the swap to Hummel brings some good times on the pitch. And as Adam's saying, I think that's something that definitely resonates with Everton and football fans in the wider scope as well. I think people are getting a bit sick of copy and paste kits and all kind of just being given the same old stripe with different colours, really, isn't it? It seems like we're going to get a really kind of custom-made design of Hummel. So it's all good, and in Carlo's first full season as well. So it's all shaping up to be a really exciting term next year.
No, that's a good shout actually by Sam, because the psychology of football kits you sometimes overlook. 1986, which was right in the middle of like glorious Everton era, they had one of the most hated kits in Everton history, the white bib, purely because we came so close to winning the double and lost it each time. Likewise, 97, 98, although to be fair, I remember writing about this kit at the outset of the season and saying how it was appalling even before a ball had been kicked, because it wasn't even royal blue. It was like a washed out, very, very pale blue. and then became one of like the worst seasons in living memory, where we just about managed to stay up. So yeah, psychology plays a part as well. So who knows, if Hummel creates a kit that coincides with a very successful season on the pitch, it could become regarded as a classic.
Well, neatly segueing on to the meat of this podcast. How's the '95 kit look in on reflection now? Is it a kit that we look back at fondly?
I've got one in the wardrobe somewhere. Still keep it just for nostalgia purposes. I don't know. It's a weird one, that, because it was a wonderful day, absolutely a great season, even though it was a season of two dramatic halves, because the first half was absolutely appalling, and the second season was sort of joyous and relief mixed in equal measure. But you look back on that kit with a sense of fondness, because obviously it's a trophy that Everton won. But I totally get also so why people are a little bit frustrated. It's 25 years ago now. And, that's comfortably the longest period in the club's history, without a trophy having been won. And so it's a bittersweet pill, really. Yeah, it's a lovely kit to look back on, and it's a nice bit of nostalgia to reflect on. But it's been far too long. And I understand why some fans are a little bit grumpy about that as well.
Well, Adam, that was the thrust of this part of the pod, and bringing 95 back onto discussion. Of course, today is 25th anniversary of the win over Manchester United. And you instantly... And I knew this for today, the reactions online particularly and talking to people would be conflicted, wouldn't it? Because as much as we've won the FA Cup in '95, and any trophy victory should always be remembered and reminisced about, it is, as Prenell mentioned, it's what comes with it. It's the fact that it also brings that reminder, again, that it's been so long without a trophy. I mean, what do you sense that as well?
Yeah, certainly. I think Preno summed it up perfectly by calling it bittersweet, and I think it brings it more into sort of perspective. You look back and watch Howard's way, and you're thinking to yourself, well, this squad was appalled that Everton had gone 14 years at that point without winning a trophy before they won the FA Cup against Watford, and now it's been 11 years longer than that. Me and Sam have been Everton fans all our lives, and we don't remember the club lifting a trophy. It's the longest barren period in the club's history, and it is just disappointing. And I mean, I still don't think you can take away from looking back on that cup win in '95. As an event and as an occasion, it must have been huge for a huge number of Everton fans who were there on the day. Who were in Liverpool at the time. It would have been a massive occasion, and Joe Royal's Dogs of War doing it in the way that they did. It is still an incredible achievement, but it does just come with that caveat and bit of it's really not that good since, and there haven't really even been that many close calls since. It's been one FA Cup final since that point, really, which is just that's more disappointing than anything else as well. So. Sam was mentioning before, fingers crossed, Carlo Ancelotti at the helm now, things can look a little bit different in the future, and, we might be able to celebrate this trophy draw finally coming to an end. But, yeah, bittersweet is probably the right way to look at it.
So, Sam, what for you has got to change for us to be, routinely, fairly regularly lifting trophies for the first end this drought? What's got to happen?
Well, we won the FA Cup on the 20th of May 1995, and I was born on the 20th of June 1995, so maybe it's down the jinx.
Yeah.
Maybe I should change. It's just so tough, especially with everything going on now and the kind of the change in face of football, and you look ahead to next season and you might have, Newcastle could be in the mix now after their takeover, and, Leicester are looking to have a really good base after this season. I'd be surprised if they weren't challenging in some capacity again. You've got Tottenham, and then you've got kind of your Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, City, and Liverpool's as well. So there's never been a more difficult time to be trying to win trophies in the history of modern football, I wouldn't say. So it's not getting easier with each year that's going on. I would say that we've definitely missed opportunities. I think we missed a few opportunities under David Luiz, which I think eventually ended up with a few fans getting frustrated, especially the 2011 semi-final to Liverpool as well. So there's been tough times, but At the moment, I think you've just looked to. There's definitely sort of squad. I think that there's there that could certainly put together a run in a League Cup and an FA Cup, and certainly for the top 6 or 7 in the Premier League. But it definitely also needs additions as well. There needs to be a few new faces. And in the context of coronavirus and everything's going to go on, how easy that'll be to kind of put together is difficult. So, you've got to, as Preno saying, the time we won a trophy was a season nearly got relegated. It's not an impossible thing to do, but at the moment it does just feel sometimes like it's getting further away and further away. And I really think that with Carlo coming in, it just needs it to happen because he knows how to get it over the line. He knows how to win these trophies. So it's really starting to feel like it's a now or never kind of scenario. We've got to get something under our belt in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Pran, I'm going to read you some quotes from Cenk Tosun that came out earlier this week. He said, winning the Premier League title is a hard task given the presence of Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea and Manchester United. However, I think we can win the FA Cup League Cup because the club is running in a very professional way and we have quality players. But as Sam says, as much as that would have been a truism maybe 7, 8 years ago, the pattern of team won the FA Cup and League Cup recently tells you that every trophy is fiercely fought for. Even Manchester City, Pep Guardiola, they're going out to win everything.
Absolutely agree with that 100%. But there's always like the exception that proves the rule, and Leicester City were that exception, in very recent memory. So for that to happen, I think you need 3 elements in place. One, you've got to have the right manager. Confident we have. I think he's absolutely the right manager at the time. But then you've got to double that up with good recruitment. And Marcel Brands has proved that, so he's a man who's capable of doing that. Obviously, financial fair play makes that more tricky nowadays. But we still have to get more players in the squad. Probably isn't good enough at the moment to be lifting trophies. But then the indefinable element is a little bit of luck. So you do need a little bit of good fortune along the way. And, if it's like Silva and Distan not turning and playing a back pass at, a crucial moment of a semi-final of, I'm trying to think of something in the Chelsea Cup final that didn't go wrong. I mean, Chelsea probably deserved that well on the day.
Or even in the Man City League Cup semi under Roberto.
Oh, exactly, yeah, a referee, so making an awful decision and not noticing that, a ball has gone out of play before it's dragged back in for, City to, score a crucial goal. So, yeah, you do need an element of good fortune, so in those periods. So you get all those 3 elements together and so suddenly, so you've got half a chance. But I do agree it is harder now than it ever has been. You've got so many high-profile elite football clubs, all battering against each other. I never used to be in that group. It's only 20 years ago. So, okay, it's just before Sam was born. But, it was so in that era when Everton were part of that A-League group. And Everton really should be back in that A-League group again. But there's no divine right. I mean, you do have clubs that, so suddenly, fall from grace and never get back up there ever again. Sunderland way back in the, the 30s and Huddersfield were the leading lights of English football and never, ever got back up there again. Everton have suffered the fall from that they've suffered. But, so equally, we're nowhere near where a club of Everton standing and historical achievement should be. And an awful lot of things need to be put in place for that to be restored. And some of those things are in place, not at all.
Just staying with you, Preno, are you optimistic about, in the short term, seeing this drought come to an end?
Relatively, yeah. Like I say, we've got the right manager in place, and we've got the right man to recruit and bring in players. What makes it more difficult, of course, is the financial fair play issue. You can't do what Chelsea did when they suddenly got a wealthy benefactor and just start buying absolutely incredible players, as Manchester City did as well. Everton have got to be a little bit more savvy than that. So that makes things a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I'm as optimistic as we can be. And of course, as the indefinable of the new stadium, who knows what that could do? So that could be a real force for, positive momentum around the football club and could attract incredible players. And we don't know. Fingers crossed that'll be a force for good.
And Adam, I suppose the other factor, or one of the other factors in this is, the football club, particularly with relatively new faces, Marcel Brands, Carlo Ancelotti only came through the door in December. Farhad Moshiri, of course, has been with us for 4 years, but he's planning over a long-term project. He's made mistakes, etc., but learning as we go. But again, if you asked those key figures, they would say we need patient, but you can't keep asking for the fan patience. It's 25 years, isn't it?
Well, that's it. Like the fans have been desperately waiting for this for some time, and I mean, especially since I've been watching it, at least when David Moyes was here for such a long period of time, and then it looked like around the time of that 2009 final, it looked like he'd finally built up the head of steam that was needed to finally break through that glass ceiling almost and try and get us that trophy, but ultimately fell short. Everton fans have been waiting for easily that long and have been not only hopeful but almost expectant of a trophy coming up. And I think the arrivals of Mashiri, Brands, and now more recently Ancelotti, it's going to pile on the pressure a little bit now, because we've clearly got a team of staff here who are elite level staff. These people should be delivering the kind of where the Everton fans want to see. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how that translates onto the pitch in the next, months, years, etc. And I think Preno has touched on it there. You do need a little bit of luck in these sort of cup competitions. You need to have the right sort of mentality as well. And I think Everton just haven't set themselves up over, since I've been watching Everton at least. They've just never really set themselves up as this cup team. The Dogs of War had that mentality. The 80s side had it, where they could go into these one-off games and they go, right, no, we're winning this game. We're going through to the next round, regardless of anything else. And I've never seen an Everton team have that sort of mentality. So, it's hard to put your finger on how you build a team with that sort of mentality. But, having the likes of Ancelotti as a manager, you're not going to really go wrong, because obviously he's been there and done it before with so many other clubs across Europe. So fingers crossed in the future, Everton can stumble upon it themselves.
Up until relatively recently, I don't know if it's still the case now, but certainly it was maybe only 10 years ago. Everton had this bizarre record for being the team that had been the most FA Cup semi-finals in history. And yet, if you think about it, we've won the FA Cup 5 times. We've only been in, 11, 12 finals? And so, how can a club that gets that close so frequently not push it over the line? And maybe it is something to do with mentality. As well as having talented players, you do need to have this absolute winning mentality, which the 95 group of players had. And again, another indefinable something that a squad of players needs.
Sam, another element, of course, has to be brought to discussion. What's more important to you in the next 5 years, say next 5 years, to see Everton qualify for the Champions League and get into the group stage of the Champions League, having finished 4th, or pick up a trophy? That seems this eternal debate going on now because of the importance, that's weighted on a top 4 finish and the money that's involved in the Champions League and the glamour and everything that goes with dining at that top table of European football. But what's more important for you?
I'd probably go. I'd go Champions League. I think it'd just be one that would give you a platform to attract better players, and then in turn, you should then hopefully competing for the top honours on a regular basis. And I know it's been a little bit topsy-turvy for Leicester, and they've had to kind of change managers a couple of times, but after winning the league and getting in the Champions League, they've kind of stayed up and around. And obviously they won a trophy in the same way, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like the caliber of player certainly that we could attract with the money that Mashiri has will go hand in hand with that. But then at the same time, it's just so difficult, isn't it? Because it does seem to be like the albatross around the neck, not winning a trophy. And we could qualify for the Champions League, go out in the group stages, and never be spoken of again, a little bit like what happened in 2005. So such a difficult decision to make. And obviously either would just be so good for Everton at the moment.
Any difference of opinion there?
Yeah, I think it's an age thing, probably. I mean, for me, it would always be a trophy every single time. They're the days you remember. We're talking about 1995, 25 years hence. Not just because it was the last time Everton won a trophy, but they won a trophy. We've done a similar story in 1984 and also the 1985 season. They are moments that you remember. The timeline on Twitter the other day was full of all stories of people about what they got up to in 1984, what they got up to in 1995. They're the things that people remember. And sure, so qualifying for the Champions League and the days out that you have in Europe are also similar, but they can't quite compare with, that emotion and that experience of actually winning and lifting a trophy. I can talk about this with experience because I've seen it and been it and done it on both sides of the divide. I've seen it as a journalist, and it's a wonderful moment to actually be there writing about a moment of history. But equally, I've been there as a fan as well, and they're just like moments that you take to your grave with you. You absolutely adore. So I always say win a trophy. The League Cup, for God's sake, Everton have never won the League Cup. How can that be allowed to happen? That's something that's got to change.
Okay, moving on to the final part of this pod. Project Restart. Again, if we're talking about mixed emotions about looking back at 95, I think Project Restart sends some people a bit cold, doesn't it? But look, it's here and it's trying to get the Premier League back and running, whether you agree with that or not. And I appreciate there's a divide amongst in opinion. But Everton today back at Finch Farm, tomorrow back at Finch Farm. Was it today? It's Wednesday. Yes, today.
Yeah, today.
All the days of merging. Back at Finch Farm today. First phase of training, small groups, limited contact, no contact, social distancing. On the back of over 700 tests, 6 coming back positive. Adam, is just 6 tests coming back positive from over 700 of players and staff in the Premier League a positive figure, or is it 6 too many?
It depends on the way you look at it, isn't it? If you were to look at it as individuals and you were to say, I think it was like 784 tests and only 6 came back positive, you'd have to look at that as, a bit of a bonus. But out of 20 Premier League clubs, 3 of them had positive tests. So instantly, that's looking a bit worse. We know that 3 of these positives have come from Watford as well, 1 player and 2 members of staff, I think it was. So, it got that level of problem already at a club when you bring in back phase 1. Is that set to get even worse as we go down the line? It really is interesting because I just don't think I don't think these positive test results have helped in any way, shape, or form. Really, I think they're just going to continue dividing the debate. But we're down the line now, and I suppose the methods that training have been suggested, I think they, for somebody who's not a scientist or anything like that, they seem all right to me. Bring players in, they're never within 2 meters of each other. They're here for, like 75, 90-minute sessions, and then they're gone again. And then Finch Farm's getting deep cleaned every day. So, it seems like it's going to be all right to me. But, if these we keep periodic testing players and staff, if these numbers start to rise, then I just can't see how it's going to be continue to be viable. So, I think the only good return from these tests would have been 0. Like if we'd have had 0 positive, then you'd have quantifiably been able to go, all right, that's fine. But as soon as there was at least 1, then you're thinking to yourself, where do we go from here?
Sam, another element, of course, of the whole Project Restart is it's been inevitable for a long time, but behind closed doors football, certainly from an Everton point of view, was only officially acknowledged as an inevitability this weekend when they set about plans and options for season ticket holders and people who've got match tickets for the remaining 5 home games to get refunds. How do you? I know we've asked various questions on behind closed doors on the pod across lockdown, but as it becomes, as it becomes an even more of a reality of how the season would get going again, how do you feel about it?
To be honest, I was saying yesterday that I can't do like the idea of the ideal scenario is for us all to be healthy and safe again and watching it at Goodison, but the kind of with the Euros now being pushed back a year, the kind of footy bands are on the telly, like 60, 70 games spread across 6 or 7 weeks. Then for the viewer, I think it could be a nice spectacle for the players. I think it'll be difficult. I think obviously, it's just natural to get spurred on, isn't it, by 40,000 fans backing you, and we're going to be missing that, and we're going to be missing that atmosphere. It's going to be a difficult atmosphere. A Merseyside derby played to a handful, 50, 100 people in a stadium, an assortment of various people. It's not great from that respect. So it's all just new territory, isn't it? So, but from watching the games in June of the week, it was almost just like watching a bit of a pre-season friendly, and then you realise that obviously there's points and promotions and relegations and titles on the line. So it's going to be incredibly interesting to watch the product that the Premier League put on, see what changes they make, what comes out of it, and yeah, I like the fact that football's coming back, and I like the fact that we'll be able to watch some football, it seems, in the next 4 to 6 weeks, providing everyone stays healthy and touch what they do. But at the same time, to think that we won't all get to be in Goodison for a derby and be there for the last few games of the season, it's also sad, isn't it? So it's difficult, really.
Brian, where do you sit on this argument?
I understand both points of view, and but I'm sort of falling on the side of, I think we have got to try. Every other element of society is being encouraged, or sorry, not every other element, but large elements of society are being encouraged to go back to work, which is why we've seen, sort of busier buses and busier trains, sort of in cities over the last 4 or 5 days. So I don't see why football should be the exception. Footballers are being urged to go back to try and lift the spirits of the nation and give, people who are in lockdown, so something else to focus upon. 6 positive tests from 760 odd, or is it 8 from 760 odd, is very, very positive. And it's also very much in line with Germany, who I think they had twice as many, but from 1,760 odd tests. So, therefore, it's on line with Germany, who also came back successfully at the weekend. And despite what you thought of the football behind closed doors, it was better than no football at all, I thought. Yes, it wasn't great, it wasn't ideal, but it was watchable, and it was certainly something that you could, sort of focus on and discuss and talk about. The big problem, I think, we have here is Troy Deeney. And, so his experience, totally understandably, he said that, look, I'm not going back. I've got a 5-month-old child who's got respiratory problems, therefore I won't play. And you totally understand why he would take that stance. So that then places Watford into a position whereby their skipper isn't going to play. So could they then feasibly say, we shouldn't be part of this, project restart? And that creates the whole situation then is thrown into a bit of a quandary. So it's a very, very precarious ledge that we're balanced on at the moment. And it just takes, like you say, a couple more positive tests to come back, and the whole thing could be, so back to square one again, and we all go into lockdown again. But I do think we have to try. I do think we try and follow German lead, and they've got a successful restart going last weekend, and are going to continue again this weekend. And I think we have to try and do something similar.
Okay, interesting. We'll leave it there. Lean and Mean podcast for the first one of the week. We'll be back on Friday as usual. Thank you very much for listening, chaps. Thanks for your company there. We discussed Hummel, Mixed Emotions 95, and of course the latest on Project Restart. This is the Royal Blue podcast.